For sisters, four brides, one king, what started as a union meant to bind a kingdom, ended in a tale no ballad dares to sing, stay till the end. And don't forget to subscribe, because the fate of these four sisters will haunt every palace hallway you've ever imagined. The royal court glittered that spring, but behind the gold and silk, whispers rippled like a hidden current. The king had married all four sisters from the noble house of Vera, each a pearl of unmatched beauty. The eldest, serene and calculating; the second, radiant with laughter; the third, quiet as snow; and the youngest, too young to understand the weight of a crown. That what looked like an unbreakable alliance was, in truth, a ticking clock no one could hear. At first, the court celebrated the unusual union that the four sisters appeared in perfect harmony, walking side by side in the palace gardens, like living emblems of loyalty. But inside the gilded walls, subtle cracks began to form. That the king's favor shifted from one sister to another, day by day, moment by moment. That a glance at a banquet, a dance at midnight, a whisper behind a curtain, each gesture became a silent war. And while the kingdom saw love and prosperity, the palace air grew heavy with unspoken rivalry. The eldest sister, draped in gold, believed the throne was hers to command through the king's heart. But the second sister learned the power of secrets. Her soft words reached the king in the quiet of night, where no ears but his could hear. The third sister danced through the palace with laughter, turning every room in her favor. And the youngest, often ignored, watched in silence, remembering every slight, every betrayal. The king thought he ruled over four wives, but in truth, he had built a kingdom of shifting alliances and hidden knives, though none yet drew blood. Whispers began to crawl through the palace like smoke. Servants traded glances in the corridors. At first, they were small murmurs. Who would bear the king's heir first? Who would rise as the true queen among the four? But soon the whispers sharpened into rumors of jealousy and schemes. Late at night, footsteps echoed behind doors where no light should have been. And the youngest sister, silent in her watch, started to see patterns others ignored. A look exchanged here, a letter hidden there, a hand trembling at the wrong time. The king's grand feasts became stages for silent battles. Each sister arrived draped in jewels, their eyes fixed not on their husband, but on each other. A spilled cup of wine felt like a warning. That a slice of meat left untouched became a whisper of distrust. Yet the youngest sister noticed the king's laughter grow thinner, his gaze darting nervously between the women. At his table. Some nights, he left the hall early, retreating to chambers where the shadows felt safer than the company he kept. In the quiet of the palace, the sisters' rivalry turned into something far darker. Jewelry went missing, dresses were slashed in the night, and one morning, the king awoke to find a single black feather on his pillow, a silent omen no one could explain. The eldest sister began locking her chamber doors, while the second slept with a dagger hidden under her pillow. The youngest, once innocent, now moved like a shadow, listening at doors, memorizing every secret. The king could feel it. His home was no longer a palace. It was a trap waiting to close. The king tried to restore harmony with a grand feast, inviting nobles, musicians, and the church to witness a night of unity. But beneath the chandeliers and gold-lined walls, the sisters' smiles were masks. Thin as glass, the eldest raised a jeweled cup in a toast. Yet her hand trembled as her gaze locked on the third sister, the one who whispered to the king in the dark. Every eye in the hall caught the flicker of tension. A servant dropped a tray, and the shattering silver rang like a warning bell. The king's chest tightened. He realized the danger was not from beyond the palace gates. It sat with him at the table. Whispers spread through the court like smoke. Some claimed the sisters had sworn a secret oath, that whoever bore the king's heir would rule them all. That others swore they had seen one sister slip a vial of dark liquid beneath the folds of her gown. That night, the king wandered the torchlit corridors alone, haunted by the echo of laughter behind closed doors. Every shadow felt like a listening ear, every flickering flame like an accusing eye. He wondered, had he invited love into his palace, or had he built his own execution chamber with wedding vows? The first tragedy came quietly. One sister, once vibrant and full of music, collapsed in the royal garden. Her lips whispered the king's name, and then stilled forever. The court panicked, But the surviving sisters only exchanged a single glance, no tears. No screams, just a silence that felt like a secret. The king ordered the palace sealed, fearing the walls themselves were. Listening, the servants began avoiding mirrors, swearing they saw the sisters watching them through the glass. And the king realized, whatever bound his wives together was stronger than his crown. The second sister's end was stranger still, as she was found seated at the royal dining table, her untouched meal cold, her eyes wide open, staring at the king's throne. No mark, no wound, no sign of struggled, only the faint scent of the perfume all four sisters shared, lingering like a ghost. That whispers spread through the palace. The sisters are taking each other. The king ordered the throne room draped in black velvet, as if shadows could hide his fear. But the two remaining sisters began to smile, smiles that chilled every servant to the bone. The third sister moved into the king's private chamber. She spoke softly, almost singing, as she stroked his hair every night. He woke up drenched in sweat, hearing footsteps circling the bed. But the guards swore no one was there. One morning, the court awoke to screams. The third sister had vanished, only her shoes remained, neatly placed beside the bed, and the faint impression of someone kneeling at the king's side. That the palace walls began to feel like a trap, and the king's once proud voice trembled each time he called for his last remaining queen. The fourth sister entered the palace like a shadow. That she wore no jewels, no bright colors, only a quiet smile and a gaze that seemed to pierce the king's soul. Unlike the others, she didn't try to charm or comfort him. Instead, she wandered the halls at night, touching the cold stone walls, whispering to the portraits of the dead queens. Servants swore they heard her murmuring, "Soon, I will join you." The king, terrified yet entranced, could not bring himself to send her away, and for the first time, he locked his bedroom door before he slept. One stormy night, the king awoke to the sound of footsteps. Slow, measured. That he reached for the candle beside his bed and froze. The fourth sister stood in the doorway, her pale face half hidden by her dark hair, rain dripping from her dress. In her hands, she held the crowns of her three dead sisters, stacked one upon another. "They're waiting," she whispered, her voice echoing against the stone walls. That the king's breath caught, because behind her, in the flicker of lightning, he swore he saw three shadowy figures, all wearing wedding veils. The king stumbled back, his crown sliding from his head. "No, this isn't real," he muttered. But the fourth sister stepped closer, her wet footprints staining the marble floor. She placed the stacked crowns at his feet and whispered, "One for each promise you broke." The room grew icy cold, the candle flickered violently, and in that moment, he realized he was not alone. That a soft rustle came from the bed curtains. Three ghostly hands pulled them apart, revealing the faces of the sisters he thought he'd buried. Their eyes glimmered with something beyond life, and they spoke in one voice, "We waited for you to choose, and now it's our turn." The king collapsed to his knees, his trembling hands hovering over the golden crowns. The sisters surrounded him in a perfect circle, their shadows bending unnaturally against the walls. That each whisper grew louder, until it became a deafening chorus in his ears. When the guards finally forced open the chamber doors at dawn, the king was alone. His hair turned silver overnight, his eyes wide with a terror no one could erase. That four crowns sat on the floor, their golden surfaces ice cold to the touch. And in the years that followed, whenever the wind howled through the palace halls, it carried four voices, soft, vengeful, and forever waiting for a king who would never sleep in peace again.